Hi, everyone. I'm Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I am here today joining a conference that is put together by Alexandra. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. We've got Ole DammegÄ, Dr. Katherine Horton, as Alexandra, as you can see, and myself, Kerry Cassidy. And we've got Deborah Tavares on the phone here. So it's great to join all of you. And Alexandra, since you put it all together, do you want to say a few words? And I'll just be clicking. I don't know what you're going to see at your end, but I will double click your image when you talk so that people will see, at least through the broadcast, whoever is talking.
You're welcome, and this is a discussion, roundtable discussion across the ocean. Two of us are from United States, California. It's of course Kerry Cassidy, Project Camelot, and Deborah Tavares from StopTheCrime.net and PrimaryWater.org. Deborah has also a YouTube channel, StopTheCrime.net new. Kerry Cassidy has, of course, her Project Camelot, and Kerry has done like hundreds of interviews and is very well known. So I don't need to introduce Kerry so much. Then from Europe, there are three of us. It's Dr. Katherine Horton, who is a particle physicist, and she has a website, stop007.org, and she's on YouTube, Dr. Katherine Horton, stop007.org maybe, and she's targeted individual, and she will talk about it a lot. Then Ole DammegÄ from Light on Conspiracies, .com, and YouTube channel Ole DammegÄ. Ole has worked with false flags operations for over 30 years and is quite well known all over the world because of that. And Ole can stay with us only 1 hour. And then I have a website, from illusiontoreality.com, and 3 YouTube channels in English, Czech, and Swedish. And I am a medical doctor, neurologist, and psychiatrist in Sweden, but live now in Czech Republic. I guess all of us have been targeted, and my first question would be, in case you would like to say something more, introduce yourself more to the viewers, and also how have you been targeted, both Google, YouTube, and even government and secret services? Could you say something about it? If Kerry can start, how have you been targeted, and more about your channel?
Okay, sure. Obviously, I'm a broadcaster, a journalist, investigative reporter. And I have actually, been contacted, been abducted by various ET races, in contact with them as well. And that was when I was a child, still having various interactions, various beings, and am an intuitive and a MyLab, as I found out over the years of delving into this very deep subject matter. So, of course, my broadcasts are focused on whistleblowers mainly, but also authors and investigators and researchers. And I talk to a lot of ex-military and abductees, obviously contactees as well, and so on. So I am a focus and a target, I guess you want to call it. That's nothing new, and the technology has gotten more sophisticated, I guess, the longer I've been in this game. And so the ways are numerous, and I do feel I can tell when I'm being remote viewed, for example. I can also tell when I am being targeted by certain sensitivities I have on my body, and also through these vibrations that I can tell when HAARP is turned on, and when I'm also being targeted by scalar weapons, etc. So there's a lot, that's just kind of general, and I'm used to it, but I have certain ways of warding off this kind of thing. And I have not, it doesn't stop me from doing what I do. And I think everyone who is targeted can devise ways of dealing with it. Some people are targeted in a worse way than others, and there is a lot of experimentation going on. So some people may be special experimental animals, if you want to call it that, for the military, industrial, deep state, secret government, and secret space program. So I guess that's just a summation. I'm not, Camelot has had like death threats and, the normal kind of things like that, as well as things happened to our car that could have been, in fact, even recently, not sure how that happened. But anyway, we have survived, and I have survived. And so just happy to be here today. And maybe we can move to the next person.
I just say that you had problems with YouTube also, and then you have been threatened via Facebook. I would like your channel was taken down, or?
Well, I got 2 strikes for interviewing Dr. James Fetzer and also Ole DammegÄ about false flags, as I am not, as YouTube is not completely freedom of speech, as everyone knows. And so they tried to attack me in this way. They were not successful, because I basically went on to another channel, which is called my other Project Camelot TV channel, and broadcast there. So they didn't completely knock me down at that time. But of course, this channel has, actually it's 218,000 subscribers right now, whereas my other channel has something like, I don't know, 1,000. So, automatically I couldn't reach people. I couldn't reach people in the numbers that I'm used to reaching them. That went on from March of this year, 2018, until about August, when both of the strikes, legally fell off. They can't, if they give you 3 months for each strike. And so by August, the strikes were over. And I had a chance of a third strike. A third strike would have taken my entire channel down. But I turned off a bunch of videos that they had marked as not advertiser friendly, and actually just marked them private. In some cases, I just took the advertising off, and then, that was fine. Anyway, I did certain things to try to stop the focus on me. And of course, I didn't interview Dr. Fetzer or Ole from that time on. Although I did interview them. I interviewed them using my other channel, and then taking it off the channel and putting it on BitChute, and also Steam it, I think it was. So I did even a recent interview with Dr. Fetzer. But again, in that case, that one's actually, I think, still alive on this channel, but it's because we didn't talk about false flags. So they don't even like you using the words. So even though I'm broadcasting right now on YouTube, using those words is probably not a good idea. But at any rate, yes, my channel has been threatened. And actually, I've been under attack lately, and had death threats and also other kinds of threats from another quarter because of my Mark Richards interviews. And there are some people that are very upset about those interviews because he's, in my opinion, one of the best whistleblowers out there today. And so there's a very, and I'm not going to get into that, but there's a very strong attack to try to take him down, even though he's been in prison for over 30 years. And completely crazy. Kerry, so I'm not going to go there, but that's it.
Yeah, I have seen just these, the video that you have sent me about this problem, and also from Facebook some threats. But when I Since June 2013, I understand Illuminati codes and language. It's a language. And when I saw the first 1 minute, 1 second of the video that you have sent me, these are encoded, that the head of Illuminati is after not only you, but us. It's encoded there, because you maybe don't know what it means that it was 36B, 36C. You maybe don't understand, but I understand.
Okay,
and
well,
also,
I understand intuitively, but not in terms of that.
And then on the gravestone, it was written something that I understood as well, that it's not you are targeted, but it's about us, several of us.
Oh, certainly. Well, this is true, but the words and the so-called language is targeted towards only him and me. Actually, they did go after his wife as well, but I don't actually want to bring this into this conversation. I'm trying to give them no energy at all. So maybe we could talk about other people being targeted, Ole or Katherine. I know certainly Katherine has a lot to say, but Ole is on the short timeline, so maybe we could do Ole next.
Okay, you can maybe introduce yourself instead of me and say how you were targeted, which was quite.
It's like a strange CV that you go through. Well, I started many years ago. Around 1980 was the time when I really started understanding around the JFK assassination that something was very, very wrong. And this has led me down a very long road with going into many top political assassinations like JFK, Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, Abraham Lincoln, the Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme. And then I was sort of, I don't know how I ended up in this situation, but more and more these false flags started happening, and I started understanding more and more what was going on, and came to a point where for some bizarre reason, I began understanding how they were carried out, and also how the hidden clues were left in the forensic evidence of most of these alleged terror attacks. And it's come to a point where I've been able to predict quite a lot of them on international radio, even stop some of them. And at this point, my last name has actually turned into a verb, believe it or not. So DammegÄ means finding these clues. I mean, it's bizarre, absolutely bizarre. And I'm very sorry, Kerry. I've caused many people problems without meaning it. But it is very interesting because when these problems occur, it's more or less always when we discuss false flags, the different templates and techniques that are used in false flag operations. So I think that says a lot about the importance of understanding false flags, what they're all about, how they're being used against us, the techniques, the methods, the signs, and so on, because otherwise they wouldn't bother shutting us down. But every single time when I really go for the false flag and showing great detail how they're carried out, boom, they get shut down, sometimes within 24 hours. So it's quite telling. And then you see other videos that are very brutal and violent and whatever, not a problem at all. But these ones, boom, boom. And this is also what happened with the ones that we did for Kerry. Both of them were about false flags. And I know many others that have been shut down. So for me, it's just, okay, fine. That makes me understand the game better, because it is almost like a game, even though it's a very dangerous game that we're in. Everyone that really focus on finding out what's going on, if you dig deep enough, you will become a targeted individual. That's just the name of the game. And unfortunately, I've had friends that was murdered in Sweden when we were looking into the Swedish Prime Minister's alleged death there. And it came to a point where I was threatened as well. I left Sweden. That was one of the reasons I left Sweden. I've been living in Spain since the year 2000. And then I kept a very low profile until 2012. And then I just came full speed ahead, because what I've understood over the years is either you keep a very low profile, you go stealth under the radar and do your job without nobody really understanding what's going on, or you need the spotlight on you. So once you step forward, you really need to keep the light on you, because otherwise you're in this gray zone where really ugly things happen. Because if you got the spotlight on you and then something happens, that is why when sometimes martyrs can be created. And this is something these dark forces really fear, because once you're dead, if you become a martyr, then you become so much bigger than the human being that you used to be, because a human being can be destroyed, or reputation, or whatever. But if you become a martyr, that can be very hard for them to deal with. So assassinations and terminations is one of the final steps. They really try to destroy you in many other ways before that, because it's quite messy, and it can cause a lot of blowback to the people carrying it out. So, but it's like, I think most of us have experienced the last year or 6, 8, 10 months. It's just gone absolutely bizarre, like Orwellian, where the shutdown and the censorship has just gone skyrocketed off. I mean, unreal, absolutely unreal. And also the series of attacks on, for instance, websites or channels or platforms, or unreal. So, I mean, everyone I know has been somehow, had problems with website, YouTube channels, technical stuff, emails filtering, PayPal accounts that doesn't work anymore. Very, very bizarre things very often. But it's done most of the time in a subtle way. So it's like a digital filter. It's very hard to grasp, because things work, but the traffic, everything just go down. And many times when I made like interviews where I felt this one, where I really was able to take a major step forward, and for the truth to really be exposed in whatever area that was. And I thought that will result in added traffic or whatever. On the contrary, straight down. I've even seen the number of views on a YouTube video go down. I mean, please explain to me, how is that possible? That fewer people have watched it today than yesterday. But there you go. Welcome to this world. And then recently, or a few years ago, I had massive problems with my website. It was just being knocked down all the time, until CIA whistleblower Chip Tatum offered that I could put my site on his server, his private server. And after that, boom, not a problem. Everything was perfect. But then my site sort of became so big that we needed to move it, because the server space, we were running out of server space. So we moved to GoDaddy, and I started a whole new website. I have a fantastic small little team of a couple of people that are very dedicated to helping me, assist me getting the truth out there. And so we built up a whole new website, a massive platform. We really got it off the ground, lots and lots of traffic, everything great. And then about 7 weeks ago, suddenly I was on tour, and I started having problems with my email that it wouldn't send. I mean, this is a normal issue. I mean, normally it's just something is wrong, deal with it, boom, solve it, and it works again. But this time, and I used to be a programmer and webmaster, so I'm quite good with the basic coding at least. And so I checked everything. Everything was the way it should. I checked the mail service. Everything was the way it should, and still it didn't work. So we were on GoDaddy at that time, which is, I don't know who owns it, but it's in the US. And as far as I know, it's one of the bigger ones in the world, hosting companies. And I've used them for 15 years at least, and they've been very service-minded, very good, very helpful, and so on. So I contacted the support, and I said, listen, I have a problem here. And there was this woman there, very helpful. And she said, well, I check it out for you. And she said, well, it looks like you're running out of space here. Maybe the server space, maybe that is why it's slowing down. And I said, that sounds to me a little strange because we're paying for unlimited space. So how can unlimited suddenly be limited? Well, she said, I can only see that whatever parameter thing is up on the red. And she said, maybe that is what's slowing down. So she said, if you go up on the server and see if there's any excess files there that you don't need, just delete them, and hopefully that could get your email working. So I said, okay, fair enough. I don't really understand this thing with unlimited, and then suddenly it's limited, and it's not even that. I mean, compared to a massive company, it would be totally a different ball game. But here, okay, if that's the way we have to do it, let's do it. So I got hold of my webmaster. We checked on the server, and we were going through the whole thing and trying to find things that we could delete to free some space. And there was this folder that says partial backup 2017. And I asked my webmaster, what is this one? I don't recognize that. But I mean, there's hundreds of files. But I said, that one, I don't know what that is. And he said, I've never seen it, but maybe it's a leftover from sometimes when we did stuff. And I said, for 2017. So I said, but can you check it out? He said, yeah, it looks like nothing we're using. And also on GoDaddy's servers, there's a special program, I can't remember the name of it, but that directs you to sort of like this one, you can delete that one you have to leave because it's working, whatever. And so we checked with the program and said, partial backup 2017, not needed, please delete. That was the words, please delete. So my webmaster said, do you want me to? I said, yeah, go for it, boom. So he pressed the button. When he pressed the button, the whole thing exploded. I mean, it was like,
oh man,
you know, when Peter Sellers, do you remember in the, I don't know what film it was, when he stepped on that dynamite thing and the whole film set just exploded? That was what happened. We pressed on that button and the whole site, everything totally, I mean, it was unreal. We just saw the whole thing, boom, like this. And so we were like, my webmaster, poor guy, I mean, he's so dedicated. He laid down on the floor and puked because it was just overload. When he saw this, you know, it was like years of work we put into that, and it just, boom, disappeared. Anyway, so we got him back in the saddle. We started breathing again, fine, great. And we started looking at what the hell just happened, because you cannot, by pressing one button, delete a whole site the size of that. It's not possible. So we contacted GoDaddy again, and we said, what the hell happened? And they said, well, we don't really know what you did because you were the one that did something and then it exploded. We said, well, we just followed instructions. And they would say, well, we don't.
So hi, everyone. Very sorry. We had Zoom knocked us all off the call. So we're now going to try to use Skype, and we've got most of the people back, but we are still waiting for Katherine Horton. We decided to continue the conference, and we've sent word to her, but we don't know if she'll get it. So that's kind of where we're at. So we've got Ole and Deborah Tavares, and we've got Alexandra. And Alexandra, what is your last name? I'm very sorry. I always use only your first.
It's very difficult. I use my middle name. I use the name Alexandra JB because it's so difficult.
All right. So Alexandra JB. So Ole was in the middle of a story with regard to what was been happening to him and his website. So you were right at the point where you were talking about GoDaddy and some very strange goings on with a folder that blew up or something. Do you want to continue?
Yeah, it was like the support due to the problem I had with my email. GoDaddy support directed us to go on the server and delete excess files, which we did. We found one folder that we didn't recognize called Partial Backup 2017, and the program on the server even said that we should delete it. It was in writing, please delete. So we did that, and at that point, the whole shebang just blew up. And so we contacted the support again, saying, my God, what just happened? It just, the whole website disappeared. And we said, but of course you must have backups. I mean, you're a massive big company, you must have backups. And they said, yes, we do. The latest one is from 2 days old. So you can have that, but it will cost you $185 for us to reinstall it. And I said, okay, we just followed the instruction, boom, and now you charge us almost $200. But if that's the only option, let's do it. So we paid $185 and they reinstalled it. But it was from October 2017. So a whole year just disappeared, was gone. And I mean, we post like up to 5 articles per day and interviews and stuff. So you can imagine how many over a year, how much that is. It's a massive amount. So anyway, then in the end, we kept calling and asking for support from GoDaddy. And then suddenly they stopped picking up the phone when we called. And the last 5 times we spoke to the support, they kept saying totally different things. I mean, it wasn't even close to what they'd said the time before. So we were being led around in circles. And at the very same time as our site went down, also a site called Truth Media with Melissa and Aaron, very, very good website. They went down, I think, on the same day. And when they went out with a message to their members, because they had loads of followers, they described the problem more or less identical to what had happened to us. So I tried to contact them saying, maybe we can help each other through this whole thing. Anyway, it came to a point where we just felt GoDaddy that we couldn't get any help. We couldn't do anything. And I'm not blaming GoDaddy. What I think happened was that there was some guy in a black suit that just turned up one day and said, showed an ID and saying, we suspect this domain of illegal activities or terrorist planning, whatever they want to call it. And that they just took over at that point, and that we were speaking to them. Every time we called, I mean, there was this number, the case number, and I think that is also why they didn't pick up the phone in the end, because we were like, for 15 years, they've been like this, boom, boom, boom. As soon as you ask a question, they answer, they're very helpful. And now they stopped answering the phone when we called. I'm sure thousands of other people were being helped, but we were sort of being diverted away. So since then, we've spent 6 weeks. I've had 3 people in 3 different countries work more or less around the clock to get this whole thing back up, because it was not only did it explode, but the database that are normally, I think, maybe a couple of thousand lines of code on the at the most was 1.8 billion lines of code, 1.8 billion. And out of this mayhem, we had to extract the information, the old information. And every time we tried to pull things out, it exploded again. So it was like going into a building that was booby-trapped. So anyway, we're back up. We're on a totally different server. We have to move again soon. But it's just incredible, the delay and I mean, what they're trying to do, I think, is to scare you off. Also because we checked the IP addresses, because once we went down, as soon as when we started testing the site, it went down right away. And we could see that there was sort of like incoming fire from multiple different directions as soon as the domain came live. So this was I would say, very advanced attack. And anyway, we're back online. And just like Kerry, things like this doesn't stop us, not at all. It's just very frustrating, and it wears you out with these type of things. And it takes away a lot of time that could be used in a much more better way. So what doesn't kill you strengthens you, isn't that what they say? So also we managed to, we not only did we get it back up, but we totally revamped it. It's much more secure, more easily navigated, new beautiful design, everything up to date and super duper. So there you go. Bob's your uncle.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Can we say that we live in a republic? Freedom of speech is close to zero, and we are threatening. We have been threatened, and even people have been killed. You don't have even the right to live. What kind of republics we are living in? It's no republic.
No, it is. It's scary times. If you scare easily, woof. But I think the people are here on this call. We all know the risks, and we've accepted them, and we stand for what is true and right, and we will continue.
Yeah,
well, I agree.
Yeah, and I would ask Deborah also about the same. And you have been in Cuba now, like.
Well, yes. Hello, everyone. Deborah Tavares with StopTheCrime.net and Primary Water. A little bit about me. I'm not going to say a lot because I'm just continually looking up documents and bringing them forward, and that's where I remain. But I prior to becoming involved, I was in a family-owned business of building in Southern California here in the United States. Third-generation builders. My entire family and bloodline were all builders. My background and my family are Dutch. Having said that, I did not see what was happening around me during the years of construction and raising a family, and it was not until I had time after semi-retirement and thinking life was very different than I realized and saw that it was. I look at false flags now. I look at the fact that we are now in a false reality, and everything that is happening is fake and deadly. And I think where I came to understand the most important component of my learning after I started out with smart meters and the confusion around why those were being deployed by Rothschild, and seeing as a builder the myriad of stealth use of weapons that was and is. And then rolling into the understanding that we don't have a government. The United States is incorporated, as is the Earth. It's Earth Inc. And we're the enemy. And we're all being targeted, and just in various degrees. So certainly I have been singularly targeted. My members of immediate family and friends certainly have been targeted. We were, our car was totaled one morning several years back when we were on our way to Bohemian Grove to protest. And so we have been hit with many things, psychotronic weapons, and etc. But I recognize that we are the enemy, that we are in a world takedown to globalize the world and institute completely new planning worldwide, and literally reconfigure the cities, which many of you know that I talk about with smart cities. I have a YouTube, Kill Cities by Rothschild and Rockefeller, that has been certainly hit by YouTube, wiped off all the views and all the comments, but I would recommend everybody watch it, Kill Cities by Rothschild and Rockefeller. But apart from all of the individual attacks, because I see everybody as being attacked in different ways, many people just don't recognize why they're not able to be successful in their business, or why the stock market is wiping out gains, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a massive reality, false reality. And I'm looking here at the elimination of massive numbers of the population, the murder of massive numbers of population. And I see that with the climate change.
Deborah, I just want to stop you here. We just got Katherine Horton on the, I'm very sorry, on the.
Well, getting back to the idea that we are literally in a false reality, and everything is being created through a variety of different propaganda and disinformation. Certainly, we're all being subdued and chemically lobotomized by the food supply, the water, the air, the vaccinations. The list is endless. And what we see here, of course, in California right now are epic fires that are continuing. And I just flew in from Cuba on November the 15th of 2018. The fire started on November the 8th of 2018 here in Northern California, where we have a mounting death toll. We're still in active fires, and we're anticipating an inch or more of rain starting this evening, which is going to hamper the discovery of bodies because they're concerned about the DNA washing out. They're also concerned about the flooding and landslides that are going to be happening. Now, it's very, very important, as I was saying, that fires are part of a strategy and to globalize the world and institute new urban planning or smart cities, mega cities, which there is no planning, and it's just an elimination of the masses in various stages. So when I started to realize the enormity of our reality, as approved in every city throughout the world, I pulled climate action plans, resilient plans from major cities worldwide. And I was seeing the same consensus language, the same advisory language, the same Delphi methodology of creating the illusion that people are contributing to these plans and that there are experts leading them into what is the best plan for their community. Basically, what I'm seeing are plans that are the same. They're just adding different photographs to blend in with the city in which the plans are being adopted, and the names of the city local mayors and city council members, all levels of governments participating in this are then individualized to that city's individual plan. With exception in those plans, they are indicating what the weaponized weather events will be for that area. And I have been suggesting to people to look in their climate action plan in their city simply by typing in, for example, I can type in California climate action plan. I could individualize it to typing in California, Paradise, California, that's on fire right now. And you would see the types of strategies, weather events that will be used on various areas. Florida, it shows the toxic algae blooms. Along the coastline cities, it shows storm surge and sea level rise and many more events. And so when people wonder, well, where can they move? I think it's just a matter of looking into those local plans and seeing what type of energy attack are going to occur. And of course, we know that the 5G and the networks and all of the frequencies, the smart meters, the cell towers, the antennas, have no borders, don't recognize individual cities. It's a mass global mind control that certainly we all recognize. And Kerry, what you said earlier about different levels of attack on different people for different purposes is true. I see it that way myself. And I look at the children, I look at people who are working 2 jobs to pay their mortgages and are virtually unaware of the calamity that is approaching and is already over their thresholds and into their homes. And I'm hopeful because certainly now I'm seeing a greater level of awareness. And I will mention a few things about our recent trip to Cuba. Many of you may not be aware, but my father was pirated out of the Windward Passage back in the early 1970s. That's between Florida and Cuba. A Soviet sub surfaced and aimed guns and told my father to follow them. He was in international waters. He was not in Cuban waters. And our boat that I had sailed on in Europe ended up being confiscated, and my father was sentenced. There are many stories around what they said his sentence was. He couldn't understand Spanish, and he was just being dragged into court and having to stand for 5 hours at a time to listen to what they were telling him he had done. Bottom line is he ended up getting sentenced in Cuba in an infamous prison, and served 4 years, nearly dying. It was a very tumultuous time between the United States and Cuba. We had an embargo. We did not recognize Cuba at that time. They may as well have been off the map as far as the U.S. was concerned because of the embargoes. The United States not only embargoed goods and services from entering Cuba, but also changed the weather and impacted their sugarcane crops as well. And Fidel Castro had been talking about that, so had Hugo Chavez, how the United States was changing the weather in their countries, and that's all true. We've been discussing over the last few days some documents that are on stopthecrime.net that indicate that the United States, and of course we all know that the weather is globally modified, but we were referring specifically, and there are many documents, of course, but one that I was recently talking about was the state of California. It's called the State of California, the Resources Agency, Department of Water Resources, and it was dated May of 1965. Covers a period of time of weather modification, particularly cloud seeding to induce water and rain. And we know that the capabilities of inducing rain is very real, and holding back rain is very real. Minimally, everyone knows that. And certainly there could be rain brought in to stop the death, destruction, and literally the elimination of cities and towns here in California, but that is not the plan. And we know that the plan is rewilding, not just of California. Of course, California is a nation state. It has about the 7th largest economy globally, although that's going to be diminished massively with all of the costs of these fires and the loss of housing and the increased levels of homelessness. We also know, and we've been looking at the intentional homeless crisis that is being created. It's all part of a plan as well. It's a global plan. And the enormity of the assaults and attacks and the various ways in which people are being targeted, really I haven't found the bottom of that very dark place that you travel down as you start to investigate and see documents. So Cuba was a very insightful experience for me, not only to see some of the prisons where my father was held and tortured, but also to see the Cubanization of the United States and the world, actually, to witness firsthand what it looks like to have a water rationing. The Cubans have water turned off through their municipal water supply and only turned on maybe a couple of hours a day, and sometimes not. Sometimes water's not turned on for longer periods of time. But the Cubans have tanks on top of their shabbily built houses. So when the water is turned on, they're filling, or at least allowing as much water as possible when the water's on to put water in their tanks so that they can use it later. They also have tremendous food rationing, and they have food rationing cards. We filmed the cards. We filmed where the depositories are to pick up food, very meager amounts of food. They're generally receiving $20 a month income. And again, it's a country built on socialism, a dictatorship, and built out of the plans that are approved in all of our cities throughout the world. That's the climate action plans, the plans to reduce resources globally. And again, very limited food. People don't have cars, they walk. Again, that's all part of Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 to eliminate all cars. We see that happening here in the United States in particular, and elsewhere as well. Here in Northern California, the phrase is diesel free by 33. In other words, no more diesel for anything by the year 2033. So we're looking at the global disruption of all markets, the pummeling back into pre-Columbian times, and living as I was witnessing in Cuba. And the police state in Cuba, it is a prison island. And I printed off over 17 pages of prisons, but prisons within a prison island is what it is. Police everywhere, plainclothes police hiding in bushes. Some of the guides that we had, we told them that we were not interested in the typical tourist sites. We wanted to see where the people lived, and we wanted to know what offenses people were put in prison for. And they literally whispered and looked around and said, well, let's go to a safer place to speak. There are cameras, there are lighting fixtures now, LED lights, which in many instances are eyes in the sky. You can type in LED lights. It's a global deployment of a new lighting system that literally can hear, see, track, and monitor. And it appears that that was the type of lighting that was being deployed in some very, very impoverished shopping areas in Cuba while we were there, which we filmed. But very whispered to us, the people were talking about they don't want to end up in a strong prison. And those are the prisons that they are put into if they talk against the government in any way. So we also witnessed some Cuban passing out flyers in a square to tourists. And when the tourists passed by and weren't looking back, he was arrested. Sadly, we weren't able to get a flyer, but this is the type of policing that exists in Cuba.
Okay, sorry, Alexandra. I mean, sorry, Deborah. We have. I'm not sure if we lost Ole. Is Ole still there?
No, he said that he can stay with us only 1 hour. So
the hour is
his hour's up.
The hour's
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, so we lost him. Sorry that we only had him on for a very short time. Okay, well that makes that clear. What I'd like to do is give Katherine Horton a time to talk as well, Deborah. So if you can kind of shorten this a bit, and then we can come back to you on various topics as we go.
Great. Okay. Well, I guess I would just like to say that the globalization of the world is occurring, and the methodologies behind it are many. And we attempt on stopthecrime.net to reveal the documents that disclose this. Also, the use of electronic and psychotronic weapons on people individually, as what Katherine is going through. And so many horrendous assaults, because I think it's fairly plain to see that we are the enemy. And with that, I will step aside for the moment and happily listen to Dr. Horton. Hi.
Hello. I hope you can all hear me. Is the microphone working fine? Okay,
yes,
good.
Yes, seems fine.
I had to look around some of the sabotage which we were talking about earlier, and it was very interesting listening to the introductions, because I guess I share something with everybody. So starting with what Deborah was talking about at the end, I grew up in the populist system, And I'm a Hungarian, and I was born in communist Romania. And my parents and we fled to Germany before the fall of the Berlin Wall. And communist Romania in the 80s still had the water rationing that you describe in Cuba. And what I can say after the research I have done is that both the communist system and also Cuba, they are not what they seem, in the sense that these systems haven't come about through some popular uprising. They have come about because of a mostly Swiss cartel-steered and funded plan, and they are actually many experiments for what they wanted to put into place all around the world. So the snitching programs that you describe, having witnessed in Cuba, I grew up with them in communist Romania. And I understand very clearly what type of people they recruit for that. They are typically the dumbest of the dumb. And now I see exactly the same thing being done by MI5 in Britain, by German intelligence, and here Swiss intelligence. And I can see the very same program that I've grown up with being put into practice. I seem to get a bit of feedback. I hope, is that something on my end that doesn't disturb too much? One of the things I wanted to say, so what I'm doing now in my history after coming to Germany, I went to the United Kingdom to Oxford to do my undergraduate. And I think it's Alexandra's microphone where they're sending
the ones who are not talking, if you have a mute button, it's good to use that. I'm not able to use that because I'm broadcasting this.
Yeah, this is a common trick that they use. They use somebody's microphone to feed their sound. I can tell it's not coming from Alexandra. It's being piped centrally. So what happened then is I went, after my finishing my school career, I won a place at Oxford. And when I arrived, this is something I only really made sense recently of what actually happened. But in my first week at Oxford, I was placed into a human experimentation program by MI5. Then I started being sex trafficked from the very first week. So I went through my undergraduate. In the very first week and first month or so, I had very intense stalking, all elderly men. I didn't know who they were. Now looking back, I think they were retired MI5 and MI6 who used Cambridge and Oxford as hunting ground for women who they want to traffic or who they find interesting. But I managed to ignore the entire thing, and it kind of died down mostly for the 4 years of my undergraduate. And then strange things started happening again when I stayed at Oxford to do my PhD. And at the time, I couldn't make sense of it, but now looking back, I saw traces of large-scale human experimentation being done by the University of Oxford. And I was shocked when, absolutely years and years later, I read the book by Dr. Hildegard Steininger called The Global Brain Chip and Mesogens. And this is a book that you can easily obtain, online. And on the very first page of the introduction, it named Oxford as the leader in this so-called medical technology, which is not really medical technology. They're talking about a non-consensual body implants. It's about brain chips and, nasal chips and ear chips and all types of body implants that people never consented to. And if they understood what these things do, they would never consent to. So that's how I ended up in this. But I only really made sense of what is actually going on over the last 2 years. The first thing I noticed actively was that in the year 2012, actually in the autumn of 2011, I started being stalked intensely by MI5. And they stalked me everywhere in Oxford, in London, and they followed me around. And at the time, I was looking into the systems analysis of complex human systems, and I was attending a court case. And I was traveling to London to see that court case, and MI5 would place somebody to wait for me at the end of the drive every morning. And as soon as I was walking to the train station, and this person would literally follow me 50 meters behind me. And they made it very, very overt. So I kind of followed it a bit. And eventually what happened is that the lead barrister in that court case started stalking me. And he started appearing. And when he started appearing in Oxford as part of street theater, by that time he had been promoted leapfrogging the entire English judiciary to be promoted from barrister immediately to the UK Supreme Court. So it was only after years of research that I figured out that I'm most likely his control file. So he appeared as part of stalking theater. He appeared part of street theater when I was attacked with I was infected rather with a biowarfare weapon that it created open wounds on my legs that haven't healed to this day, and so on. So he is involved in some really, really dark stuff. But even that, the stalking, I tried to ignore. And I left Oxford. I was hoping that it would stop in Germany, which it did not. I tried to launch my own startup in Germany, which was sabotaged. And I didn't even understand what is happening to me. I hadn't mentioned any of the stalking by the Supreme Court judge, nothing. I kept it all private and was trying to live my life. And then after 2 or 3 years in Germany, my husband and I moved to Switzerland, and that's when I started being attacked daily and nightly with directed energy weapons. So after about 3 or 4 months of directed energy weapon assaults, I went to the UK and I took MI5 and MI6 and GCHQ to court. And the first 2 hearings went very well. And in the third hearing, well, that's my personal opinion, but from what happened is I would say that they planted a judge under their control, and this judge threw my case out. So I decided to collect more evidence, and I founded an investigative team called the Joint Investigation Team. And for 1.5 years, I was working, for example, with Karen Melton Stewart, the NSA whistleblower, trying to make sense of these programs. And now my current understanding is that what we are all talking about, be it Google or YouTube throwing shutting down accounts, or PayPal, or any of the other things we mentioned today, they are all part of the very same crime cartel. There's only one single crime cartel globally, which is why it's using the same symbolism, the same secret code and the secret language with which it's communicating with its criminals. But also this global crime cartel has been with us, not just for a few decades, but actually hundreds and hundreds of years, and some people say thousands of years. It is it's a franchise. It's like a really long-running, successful franchise. And it has incorporated not just criminals, but people we wouldn't typically assume to be members of an organized crime ring. For example, judges, lawyers, a lot of lawyers actually, police officers, everybody up and down society. So what I discovered is that every single one of our societies is bifurcated into the normal people who we grew up with and who we think make up the world, but next to us is an equal-sized parallel society of insiders. And these are, for example, the informants of secret services, who are numerous indeed. So the East German Stasi, with very little money, managed to recruit 1 in 6 people. And I assume that these days we're talking about pretty much the same rate, if not higher, because much more money is involved. And this crime cartel grew, for example, through tax benefits. In Germany, you have a 43% tax rate. That's the highest tax rate. But if you become a snitch or associated with the intelligence agencies, 43% tax drops to a flat rate of 10%, and you never have to submit an income tax return ever. So your effective tax rate is not even 10% because, hey, it's only 10% on what you declare, and you're not making a tax return. So you're not declaring anything. In other words, we have a parasitic society that is completely parallel to us. So when we are thinking about, for example, city councils, town councils, joining up to Agenda 21, these are not people newly joining. These are people who have been with the crime cartel probably their entire career, or were even born into crime cartel families. And the crime cartel names itself the Freemasons, the Jesuits, the Illuminati, and Scientology, and this and that, and the CIA. But it's all just the same club. They are interconnected. And many of the things where they pretend to be fighting each other are totally made up. So this was my research. And as you already mentioned, Kerry, I'm being assaulted with directed energy weapons 24/7. I am sleeping under, I think, 6 or 10 sheets of metal by now. And I discovered that these directed energy weapons are nothing like the physics that I was taught at Oxford and that I researched as a particle physicist. They are new waveforms that can penetrate material to an extent that I wouldn't have thought possible with the physics I know. And what I'm now doing is, now that I discovered that we have this global crime cartel, and I discovered that this global crime cartel is conducting a global Holocaust and desperately looking for civilized ways to shut this down. And I'm also a systems analyst, and as I've mentioned, I studied the complex human systems, so financial systems, currency systems, economies, and so on. And I can tell that what they are doing now is not survivable to themselves either. So the way the ecosystems and the entire natural systems we have are being damaged is irreversible. And it's not reversible within the lifetime of any one of us. So there are certain points of, we've passed certain points of no return. And by now it's up to a stage where they are poisoning themselves. As you all probably know, the people who are doing it are clinically insane. So there's no point in looking at why would they do that? Why would they come up with such a scheme? These people are entirely impulse driven. And their impulse, they only have two base impulses, which is to kill and to rape. And that's what they will do. They will rape nature. What I'm dealing with day to day, the victims of the secret services, every single one of them is also raped by remote control using non-consensual body implants in the genitals, and that includes me. And every single case that I see follows very closely also the Nazi mass murder that we saw in Europe. And many people don't know, but the Nazis also weren't the Nazis. The Nazis were just a brand. It was branding by this organized crime cartel, and the communists were another branding that was sold to the Eastern Bloc, but it was the same crime cartel. And many people don't know that the killing fest of the Nazis also included a lot of what we would call these days ritual mass sacrifice, and ritual rapings, and gang rapings in the streets, and mass murder, ritual sacrifice in the streets. So this part of history has been completely sanitized out of our history books, because if they hadn't done that, we would realize that we are seeing the same movie over and over and over. And satanic ritual abuse, what's being discussed now, especially in the European and the British media, that is nothing new. That is also what the Nazis did, and what many, many other people did. That was already done in the French Revolution. It's nothing new. So this is where I'm coming from, and my personal situation is such that I have to do something to stop my targeting, because I'm literally being mutilated to death right now. And just getting through my day is extremely hard, because, for example, my skull is being gunned with directed energy weapons 24/7. And they have already surrounded every family member, every family home in several countries. And my relatives are telling me we're experiencing these weird symptoms, and I know that they're the symptoms of directed energy weapon gunning. So my entire lineage is to be exterminated, and this crime cartel is very, very busy at it. So this is a military problem, actually. And, you know, the military solution is extremely nasty. And the only other solution, in my view, that we have to really start, rolling this back is the courts. And I'm extremely aware of how corrupt the courts are. But then again, I'm also aware that that is the only platform we have as civil society where levers of power are attached. So court orders can be acted upon the same day and can change the course of history. So what I did is I compiled a 94-page affidavit template with all the offenses that the average victim and targeting victim would experience. And I'm working flat out to support court cases and support cases one by one, and use these cases to file all these documents in a very public manner. And once they are filed with the court case, other court cases can quote them. So I'm using this as a mechanism to bring all these documents, which are in the awareness of many people, into a format where they are actionable. So I also would like to ask, everybody who is here, maybe here on the panel, but also those who are listening, if you have an area of expertise where you could testify about your research, writing an affidavit, a public affidavit, is incredibly valuable, because then we can immediately file it in court. And I guess the final thing I would like to say is that for every offense that we have mentioned today, there are lists of perpetrators and there are known perpetrators. And unless we start taking down individuals, this crime cartel will just accelerate. It will just expand the mass murder. So I am all about identifying the very precise individuals, about individual police officers, individual politicians who are taking these decisions. And I'm trying to explain to people that, well, you might not look at them and think they are Nazis, but you might as well. They are exactly what the Nazis did back in the 40s. They are doing it now, and they're building it up to very targeted mass murder. And the people who are to be exterminated, they are already on the lists.
Okay, thank you. That's really an amazing tour de force. And just want to say, Katherine, that's excellent. I'm sorry here, but we need to give Alexandra a chance to maybe tell her story a bit there, and as well. And I don't know how long we're going here, but we want to kind of keep as much as we can into 2 hours, and also try to come back to Deborah. And I also would like to add some important things. So did you have anything else you wanted to say? Just a wrap-up comment. And sorry if I interrupted your final words.
No. Actually, you didn't even interrupt. I was actually finished. That's that's fine.
Okay, wasn't sure. There's always a delay on Skype and all of this as well, so I never know what's happening. All right, so that's amazing and excellent, and I have to agree. And I do think the fact that you worked for CERN, is that correct? Okay.
That's right, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, when people are looking at you, they need to also wrap that into the matter, because there may be some things that you learned over there that they are really concerned that might come into your consciousness. They may have wiped your consciousness during the time you were there, and it may come back to the surface. So the constant attack you're getting, which sounds incredibly brutal, maybe in part to keep you in sort of a survival mode, to where your brain will not go back and find some things that you might have even unconsciously, observed there that was going on. So I just want to throw that in. And we can come back to you on that. So Alexandra, I know that you recently had to go to court because they were trying to say you did something illegal. I'm not sure what they could come up with, but maybe you can tell your story.
Yeah, illegal is what I'm doing here with you. They said falsely that I have done something criminal, but they haven't said what it is really. So it's probably that we are talking about these things that they consider to be criminal. So I'm giving back, like, you are not, you cannot say as a judge that I have committed crime because I haven't done it. So now I am taking the lawsuit against the judge. So it's like this, it's like psychopaths, they take out next card, they accuse you of this. When they cannot prove it, they come with another one, and like that. And for example, since 2015, I have there is a police woman here in this town. She was here, she moved recently, who I know that she was leading the attacks that the police would kill me. So she called me to the police station, and I have got death threats before that. I've got threats that police will come at 18 o'clock that day. I've got the threats, police will come at 6 p.m. and it will end up with you like badly. And then two hours before 4 o'clock, in the afternoon, I've got new information. Police will come 6 p.m. and it will end up with lethal injection. So I hide, and I saw the police cart. I heard the woman talk to my neighbor, and then I found out who she was. And when I was about to go to court against her, so unfortunately she had a car accident. I wanted to know who she's got the order of. She wasn't like working like herself only for herself. So when I asked about which chief has given her orders, so she had a car accident and her husband was killed now on 27th of September. So how can I now go against her? She is in pain. So it's not so good for me that I cannot attack her now because she's like lying down. But
well, this is obviously being carried out by, she's simply following orders, so it's not necessary. I think it's interesting concept that we could even bat around the table, so to speak. And it's too bad Ole was not able to stay along here. But, you know, to say whether or not you should be attacking the individuals who carry out the orders, or whether we should be focusing on the higher echelons and the overall concept, which I think also gets into DNA. It gets into, you know, for those who maybe don't follow this sort of philosophy, I have a new whistleblower behind the scenes that is even verifying, again, my information. But at any rate, the government's, the secret space program, and the people that are working in the secret government, etc., are all part of this dark magician, Illuminati sort of overlord type of system that involves reptilians and involves reptilian DNA. And these people that follow orders, a lot of them are either taken over, possessed, or temporarily taken over during just the time when they do an operation, and after that are gone back to their regular selves, may have no memory of what they even did. So there's some issues there, and we can talk more about that, but please continue your story.
Yeah, I was more about to talk about what Katherine were talking about, my reaction. First, I was thinking about that we have to have another type of court. As a psychiatrist, I know that the people who start to study the law school are in much higher, there's much higher percentage of them who have personality disorders like psychopathy, and they have also sadism in much higher grade than other students. So it would be much better if we have a legal system where the moral people are the judges and not like somebody who has just studied the law school. So that I was thinking that maybe we could build some the International People's Court of True Justice, and it wouldn't take so much time to learn the human rights that are not followed by these judges, and learn the basic law paragraphs. It takes 1 week for me in Swedish, and here in Czech also, the most basic criminal law. And so I believe we need to have people who are not even law educated that educate themselves quickly and are morally on a high ground, and that we maybe say, if you are 10 years old or 15 years old or 18 years old, if you are competent person, you know that 9/11 was a false flag, and you can go then and with the available paragraphs go and work on to take these people who have done it, say you are criminals and we confiscate all your money, and all this money goes to pay the debt for all countries. And if we would go, only since I have been working with this from middle of March 2013, how many false flags were taken down by people who are not within government or not paid by Department of Defense. Then we would get back the money, or we wouldn't have any state debt in any country, because people could get some amount of money, but because of attempted murder, how much money will you get? Because many of us, your boyfriend Kerry is British. He was, as well as I was, in London when the nuclear, they would use the nuke in 2012 and the London Olympics. I was there too. I would be dead by now, most probably. So, and are we going to allow Great Britain to have nuclear possibility to have a nuclear power when we know that they were planning to do a nuclear false flag on own citizens at London Olympic 2012? You have a whistleblower. So I would like to talk about this with law, and also one reaction on what Katherine has told. Katherine, I believe you haven't taken in equation one thing that Kerry speaks about, and it's her specialty, I would say. You said that these bad guys, these people, will be killed by their means of what they are doing against us as well, which I don't think is really true, because the head of Illuminati says he uses impersonators, and on his YouTube channel he has a song by a pop artist, Poppy, and she impersonates. She says what he says. You are like cockroaches. Your life is meaningless. I'm gathering memory of, like, my memory is growing. And he says that I don't need to breathe when you kill the bees. We are the insects that he will kill. But if he is a reptilian hybrid that can breathe ammonium or doesn't need oxygen so much that we need. And he says also, and every river bed is dry as a bone, I will still survive. So if you know that, if you have been denied the information that may be here on Earth, underground live creatures that don't need to breathe, don't need oxygen to breathe, or don't need these things, they survive, but not we. And they call themselves hybrids. He calls himself hybrid. So if you listen to this song and understand that it's not this artist Poppy who is telling this, she also stands there with Baphomet on her chest. So you understand that it's the head of Illuminati, and it's on his YouTube channel, which the name is Light Killers. It's the channel of the head of Illuminati. So if you understand what he's saying to you, we are taking out oxygen for you. You will not be able to breathe, but we are.
Well, this has to do with, and I think, obviously Deborah Tavares can speak to this as well. Actually, the crux of the matter to what's happening on the planet. So aside from human trafficking, we have the and targeting, trafficking and targeting. We also have the what is in essence the targeting of humanity, is, as a whole, and
That's
that
right.
certain portions of humanity are being chosen to remain, and certain portions are being eliminated, and some are being made into hybrids so that they can survive and they can be also occupied by what are in essence greys, reptilians, Draco, and others. So this is it's a complex picture, obviously, and just want to say that I want you to continue, but I do want to address that when I speak, and I think that we should also wrap that into our discussion so that we kind of widen the picture. So it's not only how targeting individuals individually, but they're
Right,
also going in mass groups. And certain groups are absolutely more the focus than others, in certain countries and certain areas of countries. And this, we obviously, Africa has been, heavily targeted in this way, as many people will know. And then, of course, California recently becoming, really the brunt of a really focused attack for the last 2 years, I would say, at least. So continue, please, Alexandra, but I'm just footnoting that for a further discussion, and you can address that yourself further here as well.
I would like to say also two other things, and it's also because Katherine is here, and Katherine has said that the physics that she has learned, she's like, you are a doctor, so that it's different, that there exists some different physics, and I would like to speak about CERN. I have warned about it a lot. It's what the head of Illuminati says, and Katherine, listen to this. This is probably not the physics that you know. He says that in CERN they are going to produce a bomb with conserved energy. Somehow they are going to throw it over to Hoover Dam in United States. The water of the dam will be at that moment electrically charged when the bomb with the conserved energy hits the surface, and this will cause an electromagnetic reaction that will open a portal, a shortcut to another place in this universe, and this place is Saturn, and they will come here. He's talking about Nephilim first, and a very advanced technology, and we will be killed, and this is the beginning of the end for humanity. It's what he is saying. And he is saying also, this is what you know from the Bible, the bottomless pit or the abyss. Okay, so I'm saying this is enough what I hear. I want to have the key from CERN. You are not going to go inside there because this is too dangerous for people. And they have got this technology from 2015. And it's blocked by people who are not paid by any Department of Defense. It's blocked by people outside. This is too dangerous. And I believe that's why you said that they have immunity in CERN. Like he says that if they will do this, it's end for us.
It's what?
It's the beginning of the end for us, for humanity.
Okay,
Yeah,
now
so
I appreciate the idea of it. Obviously it's completely possible that they could do this, and there have been a lot of sort of rumors of that sort. There are a number of diabolical plans that, you know, these people have, needless to say, but they're not the only ones in charge, so to speak. And that gets into sort of a whole discussion about, you know, who's actually in charge and how much power each group has. So I think that that's important to, I'm not going to be too specific here, but obviously I was in the California fires, and we were evacuated for 4 days, and we survived. We're very lucky in that regard. But what has happened here, and I'm having issues with the camera, so bear with me. But what has happened is that lots of people have had a lot of trouble, and there's also areas where the fire is still strangely burning. In my opinion, and we went to a restaurant the other night. I'm not going to say when, and we met a person who told us, a completely, you know, semi-awake person, what I would consider a semi-awake person who was not aware of a lot of things, but already had her suspicions, etc., and told us that she thought she saw some people, some fire people who were not fighting the fires and who were told to stand down. And also, yes. I think Deborah has had information to this effect. True. And she also said something to the effect that she thought perhaps she had seen some people, some of these people. I don't know if they were firemen or dressed as firemen. So I really don't want this to be a criticism in any way of the fire departments who have worked and risked their lives to save people. But basically, people starting the fires. And on just as a psychic intuitive level, I've been aware of this and questioned it myself, even though I was getting this kind of information. But it was very strange to come across a person who had no, you know, sort of deep agenda other than to tell the truth. You know, we were just talking casually, actually had no idea what I really did for a living or any of that sort of thing. And she basically told us this. And then I have had some information come through just recently from a certain person that has substantiated some of the information that I've already had over these 13 years of investigating Camelot, having to do with basically a re-engineering of the earth and also creating a new human. And the basic idea here is that all of these radiation leaks, etc., the directed energy weapons that targeted certain parts of the fire to burn, and they burned very strangely around my neighborhoods and around certain areas that did not burn at all, but the burn came to the edge as if it was orchestrated to go to the edge. And there's no clear-cut way the fire went from, you know, let's see, neighborhood X to neighborhood Y to neighborhood Z. It's not like there was a through line, okay? There's no through line, no connector. And there's no connector between Northern and Southern California fires either, as you can appreciate. In other words, no obvious connection. They would literally have to target it and light it at the same exact time. And they did this last year at the same exact time. You had Northern and Southern California burning. Okay. And in that case, it was Napa, the Napa-Sonoma area last year in Northern California, and in Southern, it was around the Santa Barbara, Ventura area. This year, it was the Chico, Paradise area, a more northern and more central California, north central California, and also, of course, the Woolsey fire that I was part of, which is Thousand Oaks and Malibu. But northern Malibu, the city of Malibu, is actually fine. We've been driving around to see what's fine and what's not. So this is a very strange situation. We're definitely seeing the radiation, the chemtrails, the firemen reporting, multiple firemen reporting the fire moving at speeds they'd never seen in their entire lives as firemen. And so we have multiple reports of that. perhaps escalated by, as certain people are reporting, the kinds of chemicals that are in the chemtrails that have been seeped into the land and into the water, etc. The methane and the leaks, also the volcanism under California may be contributing, where they can actually incenderize us, burn us very easily by just lighting a match or targeting us with a directed energy weapon, and that sort of thing. And so what we have is a concerted effort to change the environment. And there's a wild idea out there that one of the things that they're doing with the smoke is redirecting it to cover certain areas that they don't want to have sunlight, like Antarctica, where the ice is melting at a furious rate, they say, in some cases, and in some cases they say it's growing. But I'm just throwing out some of the information that's coming out, and it's, we have to investigate to find out more. But if you can think about what's going on, like think of it as a Project Earth, for example, and taking down California. If you take down California, it's the moneymaker for the entire United States. If we fall, the United States will probably soon follow, or at least go into a deep depression, because this is the engine that runs, in essence, the money that flows through the United States. So that makes logical sense. We understand the United States is also not in lockstep with the dark magicians in Europe who are trying to run the New World Order. Britain, as you can see, is trying to get out of that little grouping and trying to obviously bond a little closer with the United States, which they already work with hand in glove in the secret space program. Australia, what are called the Five Eyes, all work together very closely. The Nazis did come over from Project Paperclip. They're very much instrumental behind the scenes in the secret space program. I was even told that, we have invading species that are interested in taking over the planet from us, and the abductions and the human experimentation on humans that is really prolific. The numbers of people that disappear in national parks, it looks like national parks have turned out to be a site where they have decided to abduct people and do whatever they wish with them without the prying eyes of most of the city, kind of surveillance and that sort of thing. So it's kind of an ideal setting for them to operate in. And that includes the Satanism, the, abducting of the trafficking of humans, the sexual attacks, etc. So you're talking about a race of beings that is prey on humans, and they are in essence reptilian. A lot of them. They're also mantid, at least up until I could say the 1970s, and probably much sooner, maybe even the 90s. And whether they're now on our side or not, as Salmon Parks claims they are, it's hard to say. Maybe there are factions that are still not with their agenda of trying to change their trajectory so they can be part of an ascension pathway. We certainly know the Raptors have, according to Mark Richards, have moved to work with our Air Force behind the scenes to protect us. And we are being protected by certain alien races and certain other alien races in a very, War of Worlds type of scenario, have been engaging humans in this war without our knowledge. So this, I know I'm kind of covering a huge gamut here, but I think it's important to think big. I think going down to the individual is very good. I think that's also crucial. So we need to go down to the individual. We need to go up to who is attacking us, who is really attacking us, and what is really our options, so that we don't just spin our wheels. And that's what I have to say at the moment. So Deborah, you sound like you have something to say, so go right ahead.
Well, thank you. I absolutely agree, because, and I do believe, by and large, we've been told what's happening because the documents are there. It's just that people are not reading them and don't understand them. We certainly have that 1960s CIA document, the Memorandum for Climate Control, that was out, talking about the variety of assaults that we will face, the flooding and the ozone reduction and CO2 reduction and the burning sun rays and the sunlight deprivation. And we're seeing the toxic algae blooms in various locations throughout the world. Florida comes to mind right now because a few months back, the governor in Florida stated a state of emergency on the toxic algae blooms. We have deficiency in vitamin D, autoimmune diseases, heavy drug trade and trafficking, putting us out of touch with ourselves, with the blockage of our ability to think, with our poisoned food supply and water, and water privatizations, the privatization of the water supply, desert farming. They're really talking a lot about now using desalinization to provide our water, along with the treatment sewer and urine plants that are going to be serving us up because they're telling us we're running out of water. Most people believe that. So where I know many people are with this, because it is so enormous, it is huge. And I know many people get extremely depressed when they start to realize the enormity of what we face, or even part of the enormity. And they go through a tremendous amount of what I like to call truth trauma. And I think everybody approaches the solutions with what they understand the problem to be. And so what we're looking at here, of course, in Northern California, is just trying to breathe without breathing in all the toxins and poisons. Ever since being back, we've not been feeling well. We've been wearing the masks for breathing and air filtration in our homes, and watching and seeing the smoke. It looks like a nuclear winter here. Today it's a little bit better than it was yesterday, but as we were flying in from Florida into LAX, and then along the coastline in Malibu, where I grew up in Malibu, heavy chemtrailing above all the smoke. We were witnessing that. We filmed that all the way on up to San Francisco. And so I agree, we are being thrown into a transhumanism agenda. And I think that we do have to think big. And we also have to think practically, because we still are humans living a human life. For that part of the plan, to separate us, to create isolation, to turn us into conspiracy theorists, and to isolate us, and to potentially classify us as needing psych drugs and committed into different hospitals. So I think for many people that I'm talking to here and elsewhere, it is just the understanding that we still are human. We still need to survive. The water supply is under mass attack. We're trying to certainly get the information out that we have primary water, so that we're not continually deceived into drinking urine and poop water. But I also will be putting up on stopthecrime.net here in the next day or so. We toured the world's largest geothermal plant, and it ends up being only an hour away from where we live. And we're looking at what the hydrogen sulfide does to the atmosphere. It causes acid rain. What they're doing in this particular geothermal plant was originally initiated by Rothschild, aka Pacific Gas and Electric. Same arrangement that has happened with the lava bomb in Hawaii, the Puna, P-U-N-A, geothermal plant, which was drilled in a diagonal drill, and most likely helped to exacerbate the volcanic eruption. We're having some similar usage of nefarious things here along the fault lines. And what we discovered, and again, this will be up on stopthecrime.net. We would invite everybody that's listening to take a look at this. We toured this geothermal plant, but it's important to understand the aspects of poisoning the environment that this is creating, and the fact that it's creating daily increased earthquakes, because what they're doing is they're drilling into the ring of fire, so to speak, and they claim that they're utilizing the vapor, the steam, for electricity. And what they're doing to increase electricity for profits on one level of what they say this plant is being used for is they have, in this instance, over 40 miles of pipe that comes from Santa Rosa here, where we were burned out last year, from a wastewater treatment plant, sewer water treatment plant, that goes up with booster pumps up this mountain, up to the geysers, where they're injecting this wastewater into the boreholes. The boreholes are in depths of 13,000 feet to 8,000 feet with diagonal drills, and they're creating, they say, more steam by injecting it with toxins. And of course, in and of itself, the wastewater treatment plants are toxic at best. So we're looking at the understanding that it's increased daily earthquake activity here. The USGS has placed monitors all over the mountains. And so when we were up there, which you will see on that YouTube, they were drilling yet another borehole. And from one borehole, they can branch out in many directions, again, on those diagonal drills. So you can have many wells that merge off of the initial drill that it begins with. And so we're looking at the possibility that this could certainly exacerbate the earthquakes that many people have been talking about, and of course, which is discussed in the NASA War document. That's brought up, more than a half a dozen times about earthquakes. And we know that here in California, the California Earthquake Authority has been suggesting that everybody should get earthquake coverage. And I know that there are a couple of major insurance carriers that pulled out of the earthquake business in California a few years ago. So I think that they're getting ready now to set us up for more seismic activity for sure. The levels of assault keep us constantly traumatized. We're injured. People are losing their homes, losing everything that they've worked for their entire lives. And we're seeing that here because of the Paradise fires right now are 3 times the amount of housing loss that we lost here in Northern California just in the Sonoma County area 1 year ago. So we have, I was doing just a quick calculation in my mind, and this is not to be quoted, but it certainly looks like we've lost at least 30,000 homes and apartments in these fires since October 2017 up through now, and it's likely more. And the number of lives were still being counted in the current fires right now. So I think love, community, embracing your family, and understanding that this is an enormous assault on humanity, absolutely transhumanism, and transforming and terraforming. We see it, and we have choices still on what we eat and the water we drink. And I know I was hearing Dr. Horton talking about the daily attacks. I see that. I know what that's like, what that feels like. And I have many friends that are heavily, heavily targeted as well. And I just think wherever any of us are with the way we're experiencing this life that we're living right now, we still have to find some area of love and gratitude and understanding that these are demonic forces. This is a tremendous battle between extreme evil and good. And that's where I sit. And I continue to try to find documents and certainly trying to give people some level of solution so that wherever they are in this journey of life, they can implement some way in which they might be able to survive just a little bit longer. So I guess that's where I am right now. Again, we're suffering immensely because of the smoke up here. We're not feeling well. And on a different day, I might be saying something differently for sure. But it's very heartbreaking, very sad to be in all of this ash and continued fires. It's literally fire trauma for all of us up here. And we recognize the tremendous pain and loss because family members lost their homes here a year ago where we are. And I've been experiencing what that loss looks like when you lose everything. And the forces that are upon us are devouring us in many ways. So we'll have that YouTube up on the geyser, the geothermal operation. And what is being claimed with this is that these are going to be located all over the world. We found information on the World Bank on how this will be funded. And they do cause earthquakes and eruptions because they're located on the Ring of Fire. And the hydrogen sulfide is extremely toxic. It causes acid rain and many other ailments as well. And it's deadly if you breathe too much. You can just suffocate in 1 minute, and that includes animals and humans. And the long-range health effects are many. So that is one of the new methodologies to create energy, as well as harvesting energy from the waves, the ocean waves. And many of you know that we have a YouTube up called Coastlines Under Attack. And all branches, all departments are involved. You can look at the implication of the massiveness of what you were talking about, Dr. Horton, was, of course, it presents itself in all the documents because we can see that all of the agencies globally are all involved in the reduction of CO2, of oxygen, because the false reality being created of the need to reduce CO2 and our carbon footprint is nothing more than Earth's suffocation, as you mentioned, Kerry. And that is what we're facing. Reduction of, which is another reason they're attacking the coastlines and literally stampeding people to higher ground, basically altitudes where oxygen is also less. And so we're just really experiencing a journey that I've never been on before, and that I really appreciate the connectivity of these types of calls and these types of conversations, because I think people gain some sense of power and peace in knowing that they're not alone in this journey. That's imperative.
Absolutely. Okay. So thank you for that, Deborah. Very obviously important statements within everything you're saying. So kind of going around the circle here, back to Dr. Horton, Katherine, would you like to add to the sort of some of the things you've heard? And just want to apologize to the viewers. YouTube is supposed to be, the hugest company out there, et cetera, but some reason our video is no longer working. So our audio is working as far as I know. We're monitoring it, but it's stuck, and I've been trying everything I can think of to stick it. Never encountered this particular problem before. Every time nowadays that I'm using YouTube, I'm encountering new problems that I haven't encountered in the past. So just apologize, we don't have video at this moment, but we have audio, so please let's use it. And Katherine, if you'd like to say anything.
Yes, I would love to. I mean, first of all, regarding the YouTube problems, so my former team and I, we were on show weekly on Thursdays, and we usually had regular sabotage. And in the interviews that I did, there was also several attempts, and I discovered that I can have most problems resolved within about 15 to 20 minutes if I just send a public tweet to the NSA and GCHQ asking for this problem to be stopped immediately. I mean, I have the intelligence agencies on my computer 24/7, not just one. Several of them are monitoring me. And the advantage of that is everybody knows that, so they might as well ensure that my computer works, you know, as it should.
All right, that's a good advice. I certainly am monitored heavily, so I will do that right now as you talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, please do, and let's see how long it takes for them to get the act together. Because all I'm about is I completely understand what Deborah was saying. It's I call it cognitive overload, and psychopaths will use cognitive overload as a weapon against normal people. So because they don't attach emotions to it, they can take incidents bit by bit and just, you know, shrug. But we have always a huge machinery of emotional involvement, and also kind of mental movies that are running and mapping out what's happening to us, what's going to happen, what's happening to others, how are they feeling about it. And it is this extra burden that in the end brings us to our knees. So what I'm trying to do desperately is to fight back against that. And then every system that is doing these crimes, they are key people. Sometimes they are not in the levers of power that we think have the levers of power. Sometimes they're not in the official society. Sometimes they're in the parallel society. But even the parallel society I was talking about, which incorporates all the intelligence agencies and all the secret societies, they too have a command structure. And if you take out a person, you can also slow down the system. They have to sometimes replace it, and when their methods and their identities are discovered, other people can start, you know, climbing on them for different reasons. So what I'm all about is to uncover the identities, because at the end of the day, we do have a lot of people in military bunkers who are unaccounted for, and I've heard about entire underground armies and clone armies, and I can tell from a systems analysis point of view that they exist. But nevertheless, on the planet, we have, you know, a couple of billion people, and we can actually data process and map them. The NSA has the capabilities to find every single one of them. And actually the software that the math genius William Binney has developed can do exactly that. We can find out who is doing what at any one point in time. And we also know that the CIA and the NSA have a second-to-second map what's happening everywhere on planet Earth. The NSA owns the entire telecommunication architecture. So it's not like we couldn't find out who these people are. It's actually shockingly easy to find out who they are. And what I'm talking about now is taking these people out. And what we haven't been taught at school, or certainly I haven't been taught, is that our societies have mechanisms and levers through which we can enforce it. And we always have to think, if you're up against a corrupt judge, don't despair. Be aware that he's part of the parallel society. For every corrupt judge, there are on average 2 judges of integrity who just don't know what is going on. And they do have the power to set things into motion. For example, the entire architecture of the common law has been forgotten, and the cartel tries to pull us into commercial, corporate, and admiralty law. But nevertheless, we still have the full machinery of the common law, and we can get these people into jail. We can even have them executed lawfully and under military legislation. And it is extremely fast to find them. Extremely fast. So one researcher, Richard Lighthouse, he now uncovered the Space Command, U.S. Space Command in. So the headquarters is actually AFB Patterson, and I think the actual command and control center in AFB Schriever, and it's from there that the directed energy weapons that are decimating California will be controlled. Now these people are known people with a known command structure who leave the base every day and go home, and they can be arrested. In fact, there are mechanisms whereby you can use the fact that they are committing high treason, and a lot of them have been, and if you get a court order, a swift court-martial, even in absentia after the evidence is there, you can lawfully execute these people. As soon as you start executing them, you are slowing down their system, and you're wreaking havoc. And I am not somebody who likes to kill people, but I see how they are killing people around me. My 3 grandparents were murdered. They're killing my family, and they are committing high treason, and having our own militaries and secret services attack us with the plan of committing mass genocide is extremely dangerous. I mean, it's not just extremely dangerous. It's, as a civil society, we cannot fight that. So what I'm all about is we have very, very little time. Every single thing that was mentioned today, we are already past midnight on that. So right. Now I'm just trying to put the mechanisms into place whereby we can have civilized court cases where we identify these people by name, by their local address, and start arresting them. Oops. Sorry, something just toppled over in my room. I think it was hit by a pulsed weapon. That's right. So somebody just emphasized that I'm on the money. So, you know, I would love to have the head of the Illuminati, if he's putting that sort of stuff out, arrested. And as soon as he starts communicating on the network, well, you know, the NSA knows his IP address and knows his home address.
I know it too.
Well, I'm listening to that, and I'm hearing that, and I'm not certain how we enforce arrests, because we don't have a structure in place to even imprison people, and the police, of course, are all paid by the corporate structure. And it'll be very interesting to run a parallel group that will have to do this, because I don't see how we do it within the structure that has been set up that controls us and the illegitimate court system, and the fact that we're the enemy. And I know many people have talked about methods in which we could cause mass arrests. Again, here in the United States, of course, the police and sheriffs are all paid through the corporate structure, and the prisons are organized through the corporate structure. Attorneys are all bar-carrying workers for the British Accreditation Regency. And so I think it would take a network along the side to do this. I think getting it out in the open, and certainly talks like we're doing, and all the information that we're working so hard to get out, and showing the variety of criminal crimes to reduce humanity, kill us off, might start to set up a structure on the side that we can have some impact in potentially bringing these people to justice. But we're the enemy under the current system, without a way in which to implement what we would expect as humans to be done on our behalf. That's how we see the court structure here in the United States. That is how the court structure is. We're a corporation, and it does not work for us. And we are, by Senate Report 93549, we are the enemy.
I should also say that that Senate report is unlawful. So you also have to, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to roll back all these things. And the Intel whistleblowers have talked about how a lot of the classification is essentially illegal because it's being specifically used to cover up crimes against humanity. Now, this means that you can refer to specific things, and you just have to start forcing the system to bring these things about. You know, my experience with the courts and with the court cases I'm supporting is also that no system has undergone 100% capture. There's a certain percentage, sometimes it's 30%, sometimes 60%, but there's always a distribution of people with whom you can still work and who still have access to power. Now, what we need to do is we need to utilize those people and start forcing the system into reverse. It's like slamming, an engine into reverse, using the people already in the engine. We do not have time to build new engines right now. We don't have the resources, the money. It is much cheaper to actually put psychological pressure on individual judges and make it clear that if they do not stop the Holocaust right now, they will be labeled Nazis and members of the Nazi extermination program. We could prove how they facilitated it. And then what people need to know is that in the case of crimes against humanity, there's no limitation period, which means that from that judgment onwards to the day they die, they will have the threat over them that they will be executed by a future court case as having aided and abetted crimes against humanity, just like the Nazi judges did. And Nazi judges have been executed. In fact, they have been executed within 3 or 5 years of their crimes being committed. So, you know,
now let me ask you though, with the increased weapon systems that are being deployed in the 5G and the satellites and all of the methods in which mind control is being exerted on the people, don't you think it's hard to know what level of mind control now exists on all levels, where people literally at this point have very little free will, if any, and much of their actions are being controlled remotely, their thinking, as we've discussed during this call today. And that's a concern, because certainly when many of us here go to meetings, we look at people that are absolutely appearing as though they can't be real. They are being electronically directed, and we're seeing more and more of that with the various assassinations and shooters in society. And there's a very interesting document on StopTheCrime.net, the Aquarius Operations Briefing, that talks about how energy will be used to literally direct people. So to what degree is your knowledge of that fact?
So what I can say with 100% you know, conviction is that what the facts that I have is that every single time I scan a victim, I find RFID chips, and I do think that the RFID chips are crucial to target the weapons. Some chips are being used for body control and perception control and so on, but I think also weapons are involved. You're absolutely right that 5G is involved, but they seem to still need chips to do the tracking. It's I think to help the triangulation and the mapping of the beams as it's being targeted at the human brain. Now, what I'm trying to do as quickly as possible is start uncovering all these people who have these head chips, because they will be the ones most likely targeted by these mind control systems. I have seen my own mother and father taken over within moments, and they were so close to physically assaulting me. But then I actually measured my mother with a bug detector, and I discovered that just like me, she has a huge, strongly emitting chip on the back of her head. So it's pretty clear how they could do that. They just had to, you know, hone in on her. And I'm seeing that in all the cases I'm dealing with at court. So on the 29th of November, I'm traveling to France as an expert witness in a court case where the person who's being attacked by the system has found out that both his mother and him are chipped, and he measured himself and made a video of the measurement. So my gut feeling is that we could help these people if we get through to them quickly and we find an industrial scale of measuring these chips fast. And actually, I think a system might already be in place, because the financial expert Katherine Fitz put out the idea that she thinks that the metal detectors at airports, they are not there to scan us for weapons, because after all the false flags were done by the intel agencies themselves. They are there to measure the chipping level in the population. And I think her assessment is spot on, and it fits exactly with what I am uncovering, because I'm systematically going through and I'm looking for these body implants I know to exist, and I'm measuring people for chips. And I am shocked to see how many people I find. They are in all parts of society, and I think they would be the first people to be taken over, you know.
Now, what about the nano dust and the smart dust that is being delivered through the aerosol spraying and other methods through the food supply, etc.?
Now, that is a real concern, and but what I think is that is an enabler. So and now I'm not an expert on this, but what I have come across already is these self-assembling structures and so on, yes. Mini bots. What I still think, though, is that when you try to deploy beams, you will still be reliant on, if you like, the old-fashioned tech, slightly bigger stuff that you would call microchips, to aid the weapons. And what I would do is, well, with the nanotech, I think we would have to start doing blood tests and actually start scanning actively, maybe using electron microscopes for these structures, and literally start showing in the medical data that people already have these structures. Dr. Hildegard Steininger did an amazing amount of work in that direction.
Yeah,
and I'm now trying to, exactly, I'm trying to use what she has, and I'm trying to, if you like, weaponize it in court against these criminals. But what I really, really desperately need to be able to start working faster is support from the community, so that we learn from each other and we put into place templates that people can start launching fast court action. Because court action still does have success. And sometimes, I mean, I stood up pro se before 3 judges, and 2 of them were utterly shocked to hear what I had to tell them. They didn't question my sanity. So my credentials were enough, and I could see in their faces that they were shocked to the core. They are not going to go along with this nonsense.
Well, I will be personally watching your success at the end of this month, and your success as you move forward. And I think that I can say that I am very grateful for this roundtable that we're in and participating right now. And I think we'll all bring to our reality as it advances forward in greater awareness and the enormity of what we face, more pieces of the puzzle, so that we can do our best to do our best.
Well, let me say that we probably need to close this down quickly because the video isn't working. I'm concerned that I'm not even sure it's broadcasting or it's going to save this for us. And I apologize if that happens. I hope it's going to work, but I don't want to keep it on any longer. So we do have a live audience. I would have loved to take questions from the audience. It's possible if people want to do that, I could end this, save it, and hopefully it will stay. And then we could I can open up another window and start again, and the people will gravitate over to the other window. If people want to take questions, or if the audience is really keen for questions, they may be. It's not that often they get 4 sort of very cool women, including myself in there, I know. And, on a conference call together, sort of investigating these things. So just offering that up for you guys, if you can stay. In other words, the speakers would stay on the line here on Skype. We are not having a problem on Skype. Luckily, we are having a problem on YouTube. So I do need to close this YouTube window. So parting statements, so that we round it out as sort of succinctly as you can put it. Let's start with Katherine.
Well, I guess I would like to thank everybody. Also, it's my first time actually meeting Deborah, Tavares, and Alexandra. And I'm just running in their footsteps, really, and I'm still learning about all these puzzle pieces that they have already put together. And I can say to the audience that I know how scared they are, but also know that I am in touch with a lot of people who are working flat out to stop this. And we just need to communicate better so that we all become more effective. But every single one of us can do something tomorrow to make this stop. And we I think, can stop it faster than we're even aware.
Okay, thank you. And go ahead, Alexandra.
Well, I have several topics that I would love to talk about. So maybe if it would be possible soon to talk about it, something that is, I believe, going on in California, something else. I would like to explain what I see. It's about the migrant crisis, and I see some targeting or some something I would like to talk about, what we can see on radars that I recognize from the false flag of 4th of July 2013 that was stopped. They were doing the same thing as they are doing now in California. So I would like to talk about this. Then I would like to talk about I have a little bit a concept how we could handle the situation. The legal, I would love to talk again with Katherine and all of you again about these things, and that there is an international huge problem in development, and you maybe don't see what I see directly. I would like to talk about the death, the murder, or if he even has been murdered, of the journalist, Saudi journalist. You maybe haven't noticed the Illuminati triangle on his fiance's hijab, which tells me something. And over the top, if the Saudi Brits would like to kill a journalist, he do it quietly and not so over the top. So what I'm telling you, they need someone to frame as an antichrist for the real one, who is the real one is the head of Illuminati and the head of the shadow one world government, William Van Down. But they have to frame somebody as the false antichrist, and it's this 33-year-old Saudi prince, Mohammed bin Salman. They have even sold him a picture of Leonardo da Vinci, who is Luciferian, Salvator Mundi, savior of the, but it's Antichrist. You see the huge X means Antichrist. So they are framing him. They want to go to Saudi and destroy Saudi, like Saudi Arabia with 33 million people. I have seen on BBC a woman from Chatham, how we call it, this
Chatham House.
Yes, she is saying already, oh, he reminds me of Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi. So they are going to kill, they want to kill him and destroy Saudi. I don't say that Saudi hasn't done anything wrong. They have for sure done, but I would like to have money from them for the crimes that they had done in Yemen and how we call it, Syria, but not next again like Iraq and Libya, now Saudi. And there is here in Prague, there is a man who is United States citizen and also Israeli citizen, who came out now with that he has worked for CIA in 7 years. And he's saying now, his name is Stephen Bendanon, he is working with some satanic priest for Begley for the Illuminati. And what he's saying now, that he has heard that the plan of these military forces and intelligence, United States and Israeli, I guess, that they want to provoke war first against Palestinian, how we call it, Hamas, then Hezbollah, Lebanon, then they are going to target after that Syria again, and then Iran. So they are prepared for this, he says, this man who worked for CIA. So please watch this. I believe this Salman al-Muhammad bin Salman is their false antichrist to target him. And this Illuminati triangle on the hijab, in the hijab of his fiancée, it sounds very fishy. It's very fishy. So
okay, well, that's a sort of a good summation and laundry list as well for future conferences. Hopefully we can handle them with less problems, and we'll try to work on that. So Deborah Tavares, any closing statement?
Well, absolutely. Certainly we have to take care of our own now that we can, that are on this battlefield, that are injured and in pain and displaced. Certainly we can see what the fires are doing. We see the displacement economically across the world and other types of weapons systems, the taking of the water. When we have primary water and it's a renewable, we have to certainly get that part of hope out to everybody. It's important to understand that homelessness is a controlled plan. Government agencies at war against its own people, that goes without saying. There are enormous profits in the criminalization and the human displacement. In fact, one of the ways in which some of the intel documents are saying that the population will be decreased rapidly is through the psychological inability to adjust to literally being relocated against your will, be it as a result of fires or corralled into these smart cities that are happening throughout the world. So I think along the way of our discovery, it's important for us to keep in mind that there are many injured people. They're living on the streets, they're living in tents, they're living in bushes, and there's sadly no help for them by and large. And certainly we can see that here in Northern California with the thousands and thousands of homes that have been destroyed in Paradise, and many of these people that have been traumatized over the recent week or so of these fires that started on November the 8th, 2018, camping in tents in some of the larger Walmart and Target shopping parking areas are being forced out of those areas. So that's what we're seeing. And we need to help, reach out, help where we can for those of us that still have housing, and do our best to help humanity in this massive plan that has been put in place many hundreds of years ago. And it's just really rapidly moving forward. And I agree with all of you. It's escalated to a point now that we have to continue, in my mind, to be human, because we are, and we're in a human experience, and with a subhuman, non-human set of circumstances that we face, evil to the extreme. And I know many people now are certainly finding peace in prayer and meditation and understanding that this is much larger than us, and just banding together in a common conversation about some of the methodologies that we face is helpful as we go through this. So I appreciate the call. I appreciate the conversation with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, it's been delightful to have everyone here, and I really appreciate all of you and each of you, what you contribute to the cause, so to speak, of keeping humanity alive on the planet, and hopefully making way through the future, through this very tough time that many people are going through. And I do think that there is hope. I think that there are many of us, we're not the only ones, and there are a lot of unseen, unacknowledged heroes and heroines out there, and they're fighting the good fight in every way that they know, and hitting the streets if that's what they deem important, and doing other things to make statements. And so, just kudos to them, and thank you for joining us today. Sorry for the inconvenience in terms of the broken call, etc. We are obviously being interfered with, and I did make those statements to no avail on both my Twitter and on all my different social media here behind the scenes, but apparently they didn't deem it acceptable to give me back my video and to make YouTube actually work the way it's supposed to work. So with that in mind, just want to say thank you again. And I think we will do another conference maybe in the not too distant future, and we can probably do the question and answers there at that time, because I think we've taken enough time for this today. So thank you for being here, and thanks for watching, and take care. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put credits on this, so I may have to take the video down and try to deal with that, but I hope I don't. I'll just hopefully just deal with it. But I'll just say a disclaimer here that Project Camelot is going to attempt to put credits, and YouTube is stopping me. So I'm not able to put the correct protections in place to keep my channel on YouTube and broadcasting, and not to be interfered with by various entities, etc., or you know, so and so forth. So that's it. Thank you again, everyone, for watching, and blessings to you, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.